I'm Jeff Biggs, host of the Cowboys Squad Show, and the Biggs question is, can the Cowboys defense really be fixed?
I'm Landon McCool at the Locked On Cowboys podcast, and I cannot believe that we are under 2 weeks until the NFL Combine.
Nice.
Glenn Stretch Smith and the Super Bowl hangover is officially over.
How about them Cowboys? It's the Cowboys Squad. Everything Dallas Cowboys every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from America's team the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Get ready and squad up. It's the Cowboys Squad Show, starting now.
You always have to squad up. That is the key for this show. The NFL offseason is rolling. As Coach said, the Super Bowl hangover is over, and another edition of the Cowboys Squad Show is on its way. We are grateful to be with you tonight. Thank you for tuning in. As always, we start with a welcome to one of the co-hosts of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast. That would be Landon McCool. Landon, welcome back to you. Marcus will be back if he gets some sleep with the new edition on Monday. Aisha Morrison will be back with us next week as well. And we have, as always, the great former Cowboys coach, Glenn Stretch Smith. Good to see you as well, Coach. So coming up on the show tonight, lots to get to, even though it's quote-unquote off-season. But I got a lot of things I want to run by you guys. We've got a new number one for George Pickens. I'll tell you what that is. More Max Crosby rumors. I thought that was kind of dead, but they're still out there. I'll tell you why. And a surprise admission from Jerry Jones, which kind of took me by surprise. We'll see what you guys have to think about that. But we're going to start with this one tonight. And Landon, I'll get you first, and then Coach, you can follow up. But we talked about this on Monday, and kind of the theme of the show was, okay, Super Bowl 60 is over. What will it take for the Cowboys to get back to the Super Bowl? I know you and Marcus did a show on that, Landon. And so after we were done, and over the last couple of days, I've been thinking about it. Okay, what does that look like, right? I think we all feel pretty good about the offense, and we've all said priority number one, fixing the defense, right? They've done the coaching changes, the hires. That's good. We're excited about that. Can't wait to see what that develops into. But then, I was thinking about something we've all discussed, and that is kind of the narrative that, well, pretty good on the D-line, could use some help at linebacker, and if they can just get, 3, 4, 5 defensive backs, then, they'll be able to turn the secondary around. And okay, I'm with you there. But then I was thinking, I was looking around at some of the DBs that were available, and I thought, okay, even if they get a couple of rookie DBs with their first round picks, number one, I mean, can you really bank on, a couple rookies stepping in and leading a team to the Super Bowl? And if not, if you're going to sign some free agents, is there enough that they can do to really get the defense to make a run to the Super Bowl? Can they really, I'm saying, I'm keeping it real. I'm saying, can they really, not just say it, not just be optimistic, but can they really turn this defense around enough to make a Super Bowl run? I mean, that was kind of the theme, kind of the surprise theme of this postseason in the NFL, was that all the teams that advanced all had really good defense. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, I would say there's a lot in there. I'll start with
mine gets going.
Yeah, no, I get you. I'll start with can you kind of rebuild this defense into a Super Bowl caliber defense? I think so. I think there's always this after Super Bowl time when we all kind of try to learn lessons from the Super Bowl. And I feel like this is always a really dangerous time because I feel like people lean too far into that. I do think that there are lessons to learn from who wins the Super Bowl, but I also think there are times when we can kind of overvalue that. I think that you can rebuild the defense. It's going to be a very difficult task. I mean, I think you laid out for a lot of the reasons why it will be a very difficult task. to kind of break it down a little bit further, can you win a Super Bowl with two rookie defensive backs? I think Christian Parker could tell you yes, that he has before, and just not too recently with the Eagles. So I think that I also think that the Cowboys have a lot more avenues to kind of fix the personnel side of this than just the draft. They have the capability of trading. They have the free agent market, which I think that it sounds like they're going to be maybe a little bit heavier on this year. We'll see. We'll maybe talk about that a little bit later in the show, but I think that the answer is yes. I think it's going to be incredibly difficult to do so, obviously, beyond the fact that only one out of the 32 teams can win the Super Bowl. But I think if you're talking about building the defense to a place where you feel like they have a good enough team at large to win the Super Bowl, yeah, I do think that that's possible. Real quick, before Coach gets in, I do want to also preface by saying that I think we should all be really careful just saying that the offense is good enough. I think that teams need to evolve every year. Things are going to change. The angles will change. So I do think that the Cowboys should lean very heavily towards fixing this defense with their offseason resources. But I think it's also a mistake to completely rest on your laurels on the offensive side and think that, oh, it was great last year, we don't need to change a single thing. That's not really, how this works.
So what are your monetary resources? Because if Pickens is in the picture, if Williams is in the picture, what are you really going to have? I mean, I'm talking about you ain't going to have much.
Marcus and I just did a show yesterday where we showed that. It's great plug. Marcus and I literally did a show. I think it was yesterday, maybe came out today, where we talked about you could flip 4 switches and have enough money to pay for Pickens on the franchise tag, pay for both second round tenders for both backup offensive linemen, pay for Williams and a free agent defensive end. And I think because you have the capability, but someone put out a graphic today, the Cowboys have $133 million available to them in simple restructures. They are the number 1 team in the NFL in restructure, capable money with simple.
Who's getting restructured?
You could by simply restructuring Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb.
They better restructure that. That better be
just by doing that alone gets you over the cap or under the cap. If you do Quinnen Williams, I think it gives you another 10 to 12 million. These numbers certainly need to be checked, but I think the 4 players that we ended up restructuring were the 2 I just mentioned, CD and Dak, Quinnen Williams, and I think maybe we did a re-signing of Kenny Clark so that you could push some of that 21 million out a little bit, and you gain, I think, something like 10 if you could do that right. There's certainly just a lot of these different triggers. Osa Odighizuwa is another guy that you could pull a trigger on, I'm pretty sure. You have a decision to make with Terrence Steele, but I have a feeling you could figure that out as well. There are lots of mechanisms to create a bunch of money. And like I said, the Cowboys, just with simple restructures, are the number 1 team in the NFL with money that they can get reallocated into their cap by doing very simple things that they probably should do anyways.
Okay, so if that's been identified, then I would be fine with that. Now you start talking about Super Bowl. I mean, to me, the goal needs to be win the NFC East. See if you can get in the tournament, because there are ways from that. Then
Absolutely.
you look at some of the defenses I think that are really good in the NFL right now, whether you say Houston, obviously Seattle, we could take the Chargers. I'm trying to think of who else.
Rams have a pretty good defense too.
Yeah, but I'm saying all of those defenses to me are physical on the edges, and that means they've got safeties who will knock your ass off, and they have corners who can play. Now, I do believe, I was talking to Tom Siskowski today, I believe the pendulum is starting to swing. Football goes back and forth with what the business looks like. Do they want smaller, faster corners who can cover, who can buzz their feet and get places, or do you want the physical guy? And now the league, to me, feels like you've got faster receivers, but you got to have bigger corners. I mean, you got obviously DK's, is a freak, but I'm saying you've got to have the physical size if you're gonna be the guy that says we're gonna go get 3 or 4 critical stops a game. Because if the one thing the Cowboys couldn't do is tackle on the perimeter. Do I think some of that can be fixed with technique? I do. Yeah. Do I think that some of it needs to be personnel? Hell yeah. But at the end of the day, you can fit some of it is fixable from a technique standpoint.
Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
How are you going to go and address that? This time right here in my mind, this kind of 2-week period leading into the combine is about identifying, number one, what else you should have an unbelievable feeling for the 3 teams that you play twice a year. You should have a great personnel feeling for the Giants, the Commanders, and the Eagles. And so talking about that and getting yourself in position where you can go basically be better than they are from a personnel standpoint is something that you got to address. And then you have to address, okay, what and how are we going to take a look at the characteristics of what Christian Parker and his staff want defensively, and then how are we going to go address that? Are those guys in free agency? And I don't know. I haven't looked at it that close yet. Or are those guys in the draft? Are there guys, draftable guys, that can fit into this defense right now? If there's one thing, if you didn't get one other thing out of the Super Bowl, then you should get that John Schneider drafted his ass off. Yeah. He hit with all of those draft picks. They all play. That's one, and they got a quarterback that's getting it done for $34 million. So that now they can go address what you got. Walker, who's up in free agency. You got Shaheed. You got Job. I mean, they're going to have their issues too. And the teams are going to say, wait a minute, I got to go. I've got a chance here to sign the Super Bowl MVP. There's a chance I could go do that. Getting back to where the Cowboys are is identifying what and where you can go and address what your weaknesses are. And there's no question where their weaknesses are. There's also no question that they're way, way, way overspent on the offensive side of the football.
And I want to say too, Coach, I think we're on the same page when you said Super Bowl and winning the division. I'm with you. I mean, just overall having a winning season, making a run. And once you get in, I mean, the goal is to win it. And so I think with where this team and Dak and some of the others have been from, the last several years, I think, they don't need to kind of prove themselves. I mean, they do, but they don't. They're not babies, and there's no reason why they can't have a great season and a championship season and make their own run. So I'm with you though. Same thing. And it's getting better over the course of the season, and then getting hot at the right time and being healthy.
You think San Francisco is not dealing with the exact same issue? I mean, the 49ers are dealing with the exact same issue. They got a high-end quarterback. They got a high-end running back, and they had to let, Hufanga, they had to let him go. They had to let the linebacker go. You can't keep them all. And I think that's the position that really Dallas is in right now is, can you get what you need to get defensively and still hold on to what you have offensively? And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I went from saying there's no way they could let, a couple of guys out of the building to saying, hey, you know what? You might have to completely rethink about where you're at on multiple guys because you are so deficient defensively from a linebacker standpoint and from a defensive back standpoint. I think it can be fixed, but I think you better make 4 or 5 moves, and they better be home runs. I'm not talking about no bunt single. I'm talking about hit it out of the park.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a multifaceted approach too. Like Coach said, like it's not just personnel, it's technique. That's why the coaching staff that was brought in, and that's a big part why I think they focused on teachers, right, and teaching and technique, right, because I think it's about correcting very basic things and then seeing if talent shines through a little bit once the technique is corrected. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a very difficult needle to thread. I don't think it will be impossible to get them to a point where they have a defense that's competitive enough that if the offense is good, that it's good enough. I think to get to a level where your defense is winning football games for you on a regular basis, that's a different question. That's a different standard, and that's going to be difficult to get to without making some sacrifices. I don't disagree.
And I still think that if you go and spend the money on Pickens and you spend it on Javonte, get ready. You're still going to have to score 28, 20, 29, 30 a game to win, because you just can't get – you just are not going to be able to make the strides defensively that I think you need to make, which would really have to be from a free agent standpoint.
Yeah, I think there's a way to kind of shortcut this a little bit by bringing in a couple of guys that have experience with Parker. Like there are a couple of those Eagles defenders that are available in free agency at positions that we have needs specifically. I'm thinking of Blankenship at safety. It just makes a lot of sense, right, to kind of bring in a guy like that. So I think there are things they can do to kind of help shortcut both sides of this, solve from a personnel and from a scheme side. But yeah, it's going to take a lot of really smart moves this offseason, and hopefully the Cowboys are savvy about this.
All right. Well, I have another question about the defense, but we'll save that for later. When we come back, we're going to talk about the offense and the very latest with George Pickens. I'm not doing it on purpose, but we'll do that when we come back. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right. I want to talk to you about TurboTax, because tax season doesn't have to take over your life. And this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. Now, with TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. And here's the thing. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can actually meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms, and they work to get you every deduction. You can also upload your documents, go about your day, and get the updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and really gives you real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling. So for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, all you have to do is file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, great to be back with you on the Cowboys Squad Show. Landon McCool and former Cowboys coach Glenn Stretch Smith. All right, so we also talked a lot on Monday, again, about the expected tag for wide receiver George Pickens. Adam Schefter broke that out, that we already knew, but he got it out there during Super Bowl week. Yeah. And we even went to the other extreme, talking about a possible Pickens trade if it doesn't work out. We hit on all that. So I was getting ready for the show this morning, and I wanted to kind of look at some of the defensive backs that are out there, right? Safeties and corners that are going to be free agents. And as I was going to different sites, one thing I noticed on every single site that I went to look at free agents, you know who the number one free agent on every single site is right now?
Yeah, it's George Pickens.
It's GP.
No, he's a number one wide receiver. Again, these media companies always do this. NFL and ESPN always do this every year. They always include they do a free agent list before the franchise tags get done, so that they can double dip, right? So they can get you excited about the guys that are never going to make it to free agency,
Correct.
and then the actual list once it comes out. There's a lot of names on those lists that you're like, oh, well, this guy will be available. But if you honestly could go through those lists at this point and look at the top 10 names, probably about half of them will not be available in free agency.
Right. Well, so when you and Marcus were doing your show and you were talking about getting, and I confess I have not watched it yet, talking about getting that cap money, what was your number ultimately for Pickens when that was done?
Yeah, our assumption is that he plays that the worst case scenario is that he plays on the franchise tag. And I mean that monetarily, because I think if you sign him to a long-term deal, it's a high likelihood that the first year number, the cap number, will be reduced, right? It'll be a smaller number just by the mechanics of how they usually manipulate that money, right? So we estimated his number at the franchise tag number for wide receivers, which I think ended up being $28.3 million or something like that.
All right.
So, a pretty hefty price, certainly not the price of whatever his eventual contract APY is going to be. But again, the APY is very different than the actual yearly cap hit, which can be manipulated and shifted around a lot.
I think what's interesting too is there are a lot of teams that are looking for a wide receiver, and a lot of pretty good teams, believe it or not, that are looking for a wide receiver. So that's gonna move the needle in that scenario as well. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see, can Seattle afford to keep Shaheed, knowing they had made that trade for what feels like a half a year rental.
Yeah.
So there's there's needs across the board, like I said, for really good football teams who are going to be in the market and have that as one of their top needs is a wide receiver. We could sit here and go through it, but there are multiple teams whose top need is a wide receiver.
Well, see, my only thing is, and Coach, I'm not trying to bore you with this. We've already talked about it, but Landon, I mentioned this on Monday. My only thing is, look, I know the Cowboys, they have the final say with the tag, but again, looking at the other side, if you're Pickens' agent, right, and where he kind of sits in the free agency mix, you're gonna feel like, hey, for him, he should be paid like the number one guy or number one wide receiver for sure. And I'm just trying to figure out how they can make that fit with what the Cowboys want to do, and if they can find common ground and make it work where it's a win-win for everybody, where the Cowboys are happy and Pickens is happy and feels like he got the deal that he wanted.
Are we talking about a long-term deal for Pickens, or are we talking about?
I'm just wondering. Okay, if they're
not going to have any say if they put the franchise tag. What is there to negotiate?
Yeah, there's no negotiating there. So
right.
It's like
they put the franchise tag on him. Yeah, you put the franchise tag on him. That agent go over and stomp his feet till they turn red. What does it matter?
I think for the Cowboys, if Jerry, they can make it work. It's all like, I think that the salary cap is fungible, as Jerry has said, and I really do believe that. And the way to kind of show that is, like we just talked about in the first segment, they're negative. What is it? Like probably $40 million in the hole if you account for what they also like where they are currently, plus accounting for Pickens, accounting for maybe guys that you definitely want to re-sign. They can get to plus 30 million just by pulling triggers in these contracts. And then on top of that, all of these contracts were written with a lower salary cap in mind than what the actual ended up projecting salary cap as it continues to explode every single year. So there's ways to do these things. It's gonna, if Pickens ultimately wants to stay in Dallas and be paid more than CeeDee Lamb, they would be able, if they could sit down and work it out. Like, it's certainly doable to shift the money around in a way that works. You know, it could hurt. It could hurt the Cowboys down the road. It could, it might be short-sighted, but you only have a limited window with Dak anyways. And then you got to start this whole process over. So what are we holding back for at this point?
Yeah. Okay. You know what? I hope it's a nothing burger and everybody lives happily ever after.
I want to be clear. I don't think it's not a nothing burger.
Yeah, it's not that at all. I just think I just don't think he had the leverage is not with you're either the hammer or the nail, and he does not have the hammer right now.
He's not Micah Parsons, like that's the thing. Like, he had a good year, but before this, he was available for a 3rd round pick, and there was a reason for that, right? And he had an incredible year, and he's a number 1 in all these lists, and that's all that is absolutely true. But right now, the salary cap is $28 million, so that's kind of your starting point of negotiation, right? I think he's definitely, obviously, going to get more than that in APY. But the truth of the matter is if he causes a huge ruckus in this contract negotiation, again, this is not Micah Parsons. This is a guy whose value has already been devalued at some point for being a malcontent, or whatever you want to label it, whatever he was labeled as coming from Pittsburgh, right? It's not gonna help his stock or his value if he kind of continues to show that. The thing that lifted his value so much is we all knew he was a talented player. It was that he was able to hold it together this year and be mature and kind of live up to those expectations. I just think that it's in both parties' best interest, more so than the Micah Parsons situation. It's in both parties' best interest to work out a long-term deal, because I think ultimately both sides want to be here. And I think that wasn't necessarily the case with Micah, which we found out.
You don't think he wants to go back over there with McCarthy, where the Ohio and the Monongahela and the Allegheny meet?
I'm sure Marcus, may protest half of the things you just suggested, but no, I don't think anybody wants to go back to that.
Can I just one thing, and we'll let it go. I promise. I think for me, it's not the Cowboys. It's not even Pickens. I've never met his agent Mulugeta, so I don't know what kind of guy he is, but I just think that for him and for Pickens and for his brand would want Pickens to be paid like a number 1 highest paid receiver in the class. And
I guess my problem is why is that an issue though, Jeff? Like, I guess that's my issue is like, I don't think that's a problem. I think, okay. I think, again, that's what the expectation is. Like, he came out there and produced at a crazy high level. He functioned as the number 1 wide receiver for a lot of times. Is it going to hurt the Cowboys to pay him like that? Probably. It's probably not going to feel nice, but can they do it? Yes, they can absolutely do it if they want to.
Okay. I hope that he doesn't keep pushing it up, his agent pushing it up and pushing it up and pushing it up until it gets like an unreachable or untenable number. It's got to be something that they can live with.
That's what negotiation is at this point.
That's
right?
what it is. Absolutely. All right. Well, so I was going to ask you about this. Looking around at these sites, I also saw one, and like I said, I thought it was kind of a done deal, but there's this one site that still lists the Cowboys as the favorites to land Max Crosby from the Raiders. And I was wondering what you guys thought about that, if that's still alive, if that's still even a possibility in your minds. And, we're talking about the secondary. Could having somebody like Max, could that maybe hide some of the issues with your secondary if you can get somebody that can really get pressure on the quarterback in a hurry?
I think for me, it's the latest I've heard is that apparently Seattle, I think it was, offered Las Vegas 2 first-round picks, and Las Vegas said no. So that's kind of the end of the conversation for me.
Yeah,
like, I'm not
absolutely.
interested in giving 2 first-round picks and paying a 29-year-old pass rusher 35 at least $1 million a year. Who's currently got an injury that he's rehabbing from, if I'm not mistaken. Not that it's a major thing, but my point being that, like, I was promoting when I thought it was a mid-season trade for a guy that was, for a first round pick straight up, right? I was on board with that because his contract at the time was doable, and it felt like a good strong push. The angles have changed quite a bit here, including you have a new defensive coordinator and maybe a different kind of a front that opens you up to different types of pass rushers. I think in a situation where you were running a plain, 4 attacking, 7 dropping defense, you needed a guy a lot more like Max Crosby, who could be a hand in his dirt, going to get after it, plays both sides of the ball really well. And is the right body type to fit that kind of role. I think now you can find more pass rushers with different body types. It opens things up. It sets you up nicely in the draft with this defense. Not that Max Crosby wouldn't be an incredible addition. I just think that the need for that specific body type is no longer necessarily there. The angles economically have changed, and the price it's just not what we thought it was. We thought it was a first round pick. If they're saying no to 2 first round picks, I've heard that they want more than the Micah Parsons deal for him. That's
Really?
Absolutely outrageous and ridiculous. And I would not even go anywhere near them if they're talking like that.
Yeah, they won't get that either, by the way, from anybody.
What do you think, Coach?
I mean, this is just kind of one of those issues to me that, we got somebody that's putting out there because he's from the Metroplex. Well, that's, I don't see it as a fit. I didn't see him as a fit. I think from what I understand about this defense and what I've seen, I mean, that guy's going to be dropping into coverage some. I don't think you pay that guy that kind of money to go say, okay, look, I want you to play this curl flat combination here. I don't think it's, it's the off season, and we've got to have things to discuss, kick around just like everybody else does. But I do not, if this happens, I would be completely shocked. And if it does happen, I may quit that day. I might just quit.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing, right? I think it made more sense at one time. And so now that the conversation is coming back around, everyone's just talking about the Cowboys because they were part of the conversation earlier. But the angles of, even though the Cowboys defense is not any more talented necessarily than they were when we were talking about this before, the angles have really, really changed on the situation. And it just doesn't make any sense at all. And it really only made some sense then, right? So now it's just not a good fit at all.
And if in fact that's what they're expecting in return is Micah value, I mean, I'd go out there and tell them to pound on that sand a little bit.
It's delusional. Yeah. It's delusional.
Could be Micah. Max's camp hoping to speak it into existence.
Well, it would be Vegas, right? I mean, Vegas is the one who's hoping that they get that kind of haul. I mean, it's ridiculous.
You talking about Viva?
Yeah,
I'm old. Viva, baby. Bright Light City gonna set my soul. Set my soul on fire, Coach.
There you go.
I didn't know you had a little Elvis in you. I like it. Grow those. Cut that beard down and grow those mutton chops out. I'll vote on you.
I don't know if I got the hips for that, Coach.
Well, Jerry Jones hasn't talked a lot this offseason, but you won't believe what he said. We'll tell you what that is when we come back. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. But first, we want to tell you about FanDuel because the winter games are officially here. And if you are anything like us, you're locking in, no pun intended, for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. Now, the drama of curling, okay, right? I mean, the start, the slow, somehow get intense fast. How about the speed skating races decided by inches, hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off? Even niche events become must watch when you're fully locked in to the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. So the winter games are on. There's no better way to follow them with FanDuel than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Great to be with you here on the Cowboys Squad Show. That's former Cowboys coach Glenn Stretch Smith and the co-host of the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast, Landon McCool. Aisha and Marcus will be back with us on Monday. So, guys, we haven't heard a lot from Jerry Jones except the surprising quote that he gave the Dallas Morning News in context, just talking about kind of where things are and the hiring of their defensive coordinator. And he said, quote, "My way of doing things doesn't work if I don't change." And so really what you take away from the whole article was some Jerry humility. It sounds to me like a man realizes that, we're kind of in the 11 o'clock hour here and it's time to win again.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Jerry is a very accomplished human being at times and acts that way at times. And I think there are other times when he, he realizes that his way is not working, right? Like, and that he's I think he's more introspective than people give him credit for at times. I do think that there are lots of periods where he can get, wrong-headed and big-headed and not want to change his mind. But I don't think that that's most times. I think most times he likes to build consensus. He likes to get opinions. And I think he's gotten into trouble doing that before, right? Like, I think, there is a case where maybe sometimes the last voice to get to Jerry is the voice that he kind of reacts to. But I think he has seen, he's getting older. I think he sees his own mortality to a certain degree. These questions are going to come up every single year, as he gets older. And I think, it's always a good time to kind of be a little bit introspective and where you are in this process. And I think one thing that has, really two things really that have come up: the Micah Parsons situation and the criticism he received, and probably just being introspective in the way that relationship fell apart. Because I still, to this day, honestly believe that those two people had a strong personal relationship, and that they had a falling out that let their money get mad, and that's ultimately why this whole situation happened the way it did. And then I think that in kind of looking back at that, I think that Jerry has kind of recognized that maybe that wasn't the best way to handle this, or maybe I don't like the way that the Cowboys fandom reacted to that whole situation. And he's kind of trying to do something about it. There's also the kind of more cynical way to look at this, which is that Jerry looks at what he did, realizes that he made a mistake, and is still trying to put in efforts to make it look like this wasn't a mistake by, hey, this is still money that could have been Micah money, but now we're using it for free agency. Those kind of conversations, which to some degree is true. But at the end of the day, it's about the actions that he puts in, right? I think that he's spoken kind of like this before, but we're going to see where his money gets spent. And that's what the thing I was going to mention. I think the other thing that may have changed him a little bit is seating the front office's offensive hiring and watching Schottenheimer's process and maybe realizing that there's other ways to do this that might be kind of better ways to do this, and actually being open to new processes, and and just the kind of influence that have come into the building the last year because the Cowboys have done more hiring of unfamiliar names. So I think Jerry's been through a lot this year, and I don't think it's shocking that he's kind of speaking like this.
And your point is that you think he's pointing to those issues, and that's why he's making that statement? You think he's pointing to, well, I let this guy come in here and make his calls, or I wish I would have paid Micah? You're saying that's what you think?
I think the Micah situation changed him. I'm not sure if it changed him in a defiant, I'm still trying to prove that I'm right way, or if it's a, you know what, maybe I didn't handle that situation the best way. Maybe I should be more self-examining. And then I think the Schottenheimer thing, it was more just watching that have a success, kind of play out the way it did, and them trying something different and it being a little successful, and realizing, maybe I should open up a little bit and kind of my tolerance for processes that I'm unfamiliar with.
So I guess what I'm saying is you're giving a lot of credit to Schottenheimer for this last season. Am I understanding that right?
I'm giving Schottenheimer credit for I think a successful collection of offensive coaches and the way that the offense came together in a season where he was also being a first-year head coach. Yeah, I think that there's some success there.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. It's like I feel like we talk about this scenario a lot. I was in that building for 9 years. There were a lot of conversations, one-on-one conversations that I had with Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is smart as shit. And I'm telling you, he is a smart business guy. Does he at times get influenced by maybe the wrong voice?
Yeah.
Yes. Does he at times want to be considered as a great football mind, as I think he does?
Yes.
But I don't think for 1 second that he regrets one thing that he did with Micah. That's just my belief, because I think that's how Jerry does business. Is he gives you a number, and he went in with that, and he was not turning away from the fact that he felt like he had a handshake deal with Micah Parsons. So I don't believe that he, and this is just my feeling, I don't believe that he looks at that scenario at all and says anything except, hey, you know what? I did what I felt like was best for this organization. When it comes to what I think the offensive staff did, I really believe that what Schottenheimer did was he put a lot of trust in Clayton Adams, and I think that worked out. I think what you saw them do this year from a protection standpoint, again, I don't like to get in and start talking X's and O's and talking down, because it feels like I'm talking down, and I'm not. The throwing the football, I don't want to hear about these deep routes and any of that. Throwing the football starts with protection. You must protect the quarterback. I don't give a damn at what level you're talking about. That's number one. So what I saw him do this year with some things as far as pulling the center and the guard out of the core of the protection to be able to do some different things told me one thing. And what told me another thing was Dak stayed upright all year. Okay, so I'm giving the credit. If I have to give credit, I'm saying, hey, they did the right thing with how he went about hiring him. Am I here to say, that he's some sort of coach? They were 500 football team.
Yeah, absolutely.
500.
Absolutely.
He could have corrected. He being the head coach could have corrected the defense about week 3 or 4. They weren't worth a tinker's ass day one. And so how long did you need to see that before I'm going to give a bunch of credit to making a bunch of corrections? I'm going to go back to this, though. You can say a lot of different things about Jerry Jones if you want to. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. But I'm going to tell you something. He is a damn good guy to work for, and I promise you, he wants to win. Does he go down and get off of the beaten path? And absolutely he does. And maybe he's realizing, and I would bet you that's what he's saying is, there are times I let something influence me or someone say something that influenced me. And I think that's much more what he's going at when he makes that comment, instead of, a particular situation or a particular negotiation or a particular, hey, I decided to do this and changed my mind and did that.
Let me be clear too, because I don't think that, I don't know. I don't think that it's necessarily that he felt like he regrets the negotiation of Micah Parsons. I that could be it, but you certainly make very strong points. He is certainly the kind of person that would have set that hard set rule, and you're absolutely right in the sense that he gave a number that didn't that was the end of the conversation. So I think,
and at that time, I'm sorry, but Landon, at that time, didn't that make him the highest paid defensive player?
Yeah. I mean,
okay. So I'm talking about the number he gave him would have made him the highest paid guy. Right.
I'm not pushing back on the way Jerry handled.
No, I'm not saying you are. It's just an open conversation here.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that at the end of the day, the point is, keep in mind Jerry's a business guy, and he went at him, said, I'm going to make you the highest paid defensive guy. The guy shook his hand, and guess what? Then he decided, he started hollering like he was training horses. Whoa.
Yeah,
right? Whoa, I need to have my agent involved here. Well, Jerry was like, hell no, it ain't no whoa. It's yeah.
We've been talking about this. Yeah. Listen, to be clear, what we're talking about, what I thought may have changed him, and what I thought may have changed his tune, and he is singing a different tune. And I would also point out that the process of hiring the defensive coordinators and the staff, that was the Schottenheimer process. So he did feel like that they're at least going that direction or leaning into that kind of mythology. I think the thing that I think could equally be the thing that kind of is the catalyst of change for him is not that he regrets the Parsons negotiation, but maybe he didn't like the reaction that was given to him by the Cowboys Nation and by how everyone treated him after. Think about how he got roasted at the ESPN awards, right, on stage. And it's like, I agree with you. I don't think he thinks he made a mistake, because for all the things you just laid out, how it's hard to argue that he made a huge mistake. He negotiated and then kind of had a situation where, there's a he said, she said aspect of this, but Micah Parsons has his hand into this as well, obviously. So I don't know what it is, but I also think that it changed him. I don't know in what aspect of it or what about it that affected him. But to me, it's hard to kind of listen to the way he's talking now and listen to the way he used to talk and not think that, he's kind of, I don't want to say grown because he's an 80-plus-year-old man, but, changed at least the way that he thinks about this a little bit. And maybe you're right, Coach. Maybe it's more about I need to ignore these voices that are not helpful and that are in my ear.
Yeah.
And I can promise you, if you think that didn't affect him one single bit. What they said at the NFL on, I guarantee you, he is tough as a wood holler's rear end, and they crap splinters. So that's very tough, and it ain't going to affect him one bit. I promise you that.
Tough people still care what other people think about them, though, and Jerry Jones definitely cares about what people think about him.
I'm telling you right now. No, he doesn't. But
all right. Well, I would think too. I mean, take a step back, and I would think when you're in his shoes, try to think as much as you can. But you come into the league, and you have one of the great dynasties of all time, and then to follow that with a 30-year drought. I mean, it's tough. I mean, that's tough to kind of reconcile, and I'm sure he probably has moments where, especially during Super Bowl week, where maybe he, is kind of reminded of that. Like, man, it's been a while. And so.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and I think I do think when you look at how Jerry, how he went through that process, he wanted a little credit when it was Jimmy getting it done. I mean, that's what he wanted. He wanted credit for saying, I turned both of my suit pockets inside out, emptied everything I had, mortgaged everything I had to spend $150 million to buy the Cowboys. And really, at that time, really what he wanted was an attaboy. Attaboy.
That's exactly what I was just saying, Coach. Like, that he cares about what other people think. What do you think credit is? Credit is getting attaboys from other people. So to me, this plays right into what I'm saying.
Do you think it matters who it's coming from, or that it's coming from just anybody? He's in the Hall of Fame.
I think it matters to him for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that.
He spends a lot of time in front of cameras for someone who doesn't care about what people think about him.
And, I was thinking, too, it could be just a case of maybe he wanted to have maybe a veteran defensive coach come in and kind of go down that road. And he ultimately let Shoddy go with Christian Parker.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the change. Like, the understanding the process. And maybe that's, again, like, there's other things there, too. But part of that change is like recognizing, hey, there's another process that we should try. Let's do this.
Yeah. All right. Final timeout, final segment. We'll talk about 30 years ago. And also a former Cowboy has a theory about why Trayvon Diggs is no longer a Cowboy. We'll get into that when we come back. This is the Cowboys Squad Show. All right. Welcome back. Cowboys Squad Show. Coach Glenn Stretch Smith and Landon McCool. Final segment here. Coach, you were around Emmitt Smith, and he's been, one thing I love about Emmitt, he talks and he doesn't hold back, and it's refreshing and it's good to hear. And so he did a radio interview recently, and paraphrasing, he's not holding back on kind of giving the Cowboys a little nudge for their Super Bowl drought. And, I was thinking about that, what? Maybe that kind of, we us against them, we're going to tune out the outside noise. Maybe if some of the Cowboy players get a little angry at some of that kind of criticism, I know it's not all of this group's fault, but maybe something like that might be good. Might be good to have a little chip on your shoulder and go into the season like, okay, they're calling us out. They think, we haven't got it done, this and that, and let's go prove them wrong. I'm okay with that, is what I'm trying to say. I don't mind anything that can get the ball rolling and get that edge that you need to win. I'm in favor of.
I mean, that team was full of guys like that, though. You think Michael's not very outspoken in certain ways. You think Aikman is not outspoken in his way. Daryl Johnston in his way. I mean, they were all, it was different guys from different backgrounds, and they all had that same, what I say is an alpha trait, an alpha male trait, a leading, we'll lead the pack. If you're, I guarantee you, if you ask them, that they would all tell you, the same thing. If you're not the lead dog, the view never changes. It never changes. That means you're looking at somebody else's ass for all the simpletons out there. If you're not the lead dog, the view never changes. And I think all of them, every one of them feel that way. I know they do, because I saw it. I saw how, and Larry Allen never said a word. He led with his helmet and his shoulder pads. That's how he led. I mean, Eric Williams was, I'm telling you, would knock your yang. I mean, so we had, and then you had, the guys that were the voices in the room, whether that was Michael or Emmett or, and then you had the Woodsons, who didn't say a lot and just, same thing. Tolbert, I could go through all of those guys. Haley, I mean, you look at all of them and you think they led in different ways, but they all had that certain characteristic. I can't speak for the football team over there now, because I don't think I don't think any of us know. I mean, you don't know until you go, until you shut that door in that meeting room. And I mean, I remember, the sign read, check your ego at the door. And I think that's, you had a team of guys that was, they may have been selfish in some ways, but they were selfless when it come to putting it on the field. And I think, that's obviously a characteristic that everybody wants. You hear about Seattle right now, and you read about, you look at the characteristics that Sam Darnold distributed. I mean, it's his 5th team that he's been with. Never been done before. A guy been with 5 teams and win a Super Bowl. And so when you can get it to come together, that's what happens. And you hear guys talk about it all the time, and you hear guys say, well, we got to change the culture. We got to do that. I think it comes from within, and I think it comes from the guys that are in the building. And either you have that and you have that burning desire to succeed, or you don't. And this is the last thing I'll say. I mean, the one thing that I'll tell you about Michael Irvin has a tremendous fear of failure. It burns in him like nothing I've ever seen. And I watched him in June and July, the hottest period, that it was a blast furnace out there when we'd go out at Valley Ranch. And a lot of guys were taking vacations. Some guys were off. He would go out there and he would get in full gear, helmet, shoulder pads, the whole 9. And he would strap that thing around his waist, and he would drag that sled. And I can remember him telling me, Stretch, I'm going to drag this sled till it won't go another foot. And I'm going to tell you now, could push his body because he had a fear of failure. And I think, that's what that's really, and all I'm going on is, being around those guys that are now in the Hall of Fame. That's what separates a guy in the Hall of Fame from just another guy. And when you have a group of guys like that, I mean, think about that. Those guys that are Hall of Famers, Emmett, Michael, Troy, I mean, they had that burn in them. And, that's why, and that really is, at the end of the day, that's what wins football games for you.
Amen. Well said. Well, hey, anything we can do to get that vibe going again. That's all I'm trying to say. Whatever it takes. If it takes criticism, it takes
it takes players. It takes players.
Yeah.
Like Coach said, he mentioned a bunch of names. Not Jimmy Johnson, who I listen. I think Jimmy was incredible, but I mean, Jimmy wouldn't have done it like without the players, without the right types of guys. I hate to use that Garrettism, but yeah, like the right types of people in the locker room that had that kind of mentality. So yeah, I think that's the key right now, especially on the defensive side, is going out and finding the right kind of people to match that mentality. And I think, Coach, you pointed it out. Like we talked about this segment about talking about Trayvon Diggs, right? And Diggs definitely was not one of those guys, I think Micah certainly put a lot of that in question with the stupid stuff in the preseason and all that, and certainly put that question in the hearts of the people that were attempting to sign checks for him. So Yeah, I agree. I think it takes the right types of players in the building. And so I think Dak is definitely one of those guys. But Dak, even though he's the quarterback, even though he's a leader, he's not enough. You need a lot more of those guys in your locker room.
Yeah. And I completely agree, Landon. I think maybe a better way for me to articulate what I'm saying is that, okay, yeah, the culture was great. I mean, it was better under Shoddy last year, but at the end of the day, it was a 7-9-1 season. So that's not, I mean, it can be good, but that's not good enough. That culture of 7-9-1 won't. That's not going to cut it. You got to do better.
I mean, the blueprint's out there. There's no secret to it. But now, how do you go and feel like that you've got every one of those guys' DNA, and you can match it together? Because that's really what it is. It's either something that's in you and it burns in you, or you're playing professional football for a living, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not. Yeah. It's just not everybody has that. Not everybody has it. And I could sit here and tell you. I mean, I could tell you 15 stories, and it was because all of those guys had that certain. They had that certain DNA in them.
All right. Coach, thank you. Great insight tonight. Thank you for sharing that with us. Landon, before we go really quick, what do you and Marcus have coming up on the daily Locked On Cowboys podcast?
Yeah, we're doing some more draft. We've been doing draft previews. We've been going down doing prospects. So we got another trio coming out before the end of the week, and then we're going to do a couple more trios next week.
All right. Appreciate you, brother. Enjoy the weekend and have a great week. We'll talk to you again next Thursday. Check out Marcus and Landon. For the coach, we'll be back with you on Monday night. This has been the Cowboys Squad Show.